On a narrow country road in West Cork, a convoy carrying Ireland's most powerful military and political leader came around a bend and drove straight into a trap. Rifle fire erupted from the hillsides. Men scattered for cover, and when the shooting stopped, Michael Collins, the celebrated revolutionary known as the Big Fellow, lay dead. He had not been killed by British soldiers, foreign agents, or a distant enemy. He had been shot during Ireland's own civil war by men who had once fought on the same side. More than a century later, the identity of the man who fired the fatal shot remains disputed, but the consequences of that moment are impossible to overstate. Before we carry on with the story, remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of The Calendar of Crime. To understand why Collins was traveling through dangerous territory in August 1922, we have to understand how quickly the Irish Revolution had turned against itself. Collins had been one of the central figures in the struggle for independence, an organizer, intelligence chief, financial strategist, and political negotiator. His network helped the Irish Republican movement survive years of pressure from the British state. To supporters, he was practical, fearless, and astonishingly effective. To opponents, he was a hard-edged commander who understood that revolution could only succeed if it became a functioning state. The turning point came with the Anglo-Irish Treaty, signed in December 1921. The agreement created the Irish Free State, giving Ireland substantial independence while retaining a constitutional link to the British Crown and requiring members of the new Parliament to swear an oath. Collins accepted the treaty as a step toward freedom. Others, including many former comrades, rejected it because it fell short of a fully independent republic. The disagreement was not merely political, it divided families, communities, units of the Irish Republican Army, and the entire revolutionary movement. Collins understood the danger. During the first months of 1922, he tried to keep the treaty dispute from becoming a shooting war, but compromise failed. In June, pro-treaty forces of the new Free State attacked the anti-treaty occupation of Dublin's Four Courts. The fighting spread, and the conflict became a civil war between people who had recently fought Britain together. By August, Free State forces had retaken most of the major towns, but anti-treaty guerrillas still operated across the south and west. Cork was especially important to Collins. It was his home county, the heartland of his revolutionary career, and a region where loyalties were fierce, and the terrain favored ambushes. On the 22nd of August 1922, Collins set out from Cork with a small convoy. The journey was more than a military inspection or a routine political tour. He wanted to see the situation for himself, meet local people, and assess the condition of the country as the Civil War continued. His companions included senior National Army officers and trusted associates. They traveled in a mixture of vehicles, aware that roads could be blocked and that the enemy knew the countryside far better than any formal army column. Near the townland of Béal na Bláth, the convoy encountered an obstruction on the road. A barricade had been placed at a bend, forcing the vehicles to slow and making them vulnerable to fire from higher ground. Anti-treaty IRA fighters were positioned around the area. When the convoy approached, shots rang out from the hillside. The National Army Party returned fire, and the road became a battlefield of smoke, stone walls, engines, and shouted orders. The exchange lasted for roughly an hour. Collins was not content to remain safely behind the armored car. Accounts describe him moving into a more exposed position and firing back with a rifle. That decision may have reflected his temperament. Throughout his career, he had been willing to take personal risks, and he was known for wanting to understand a situation at close range. But on this road, in the confusion of the firefight, exposure carried a terrible price. At some point during the exchange, Collins was struck in the head. The wound was fatal. His companions carried his body to the convoy, and the vehicles began the difficult journey back toward Cork. The man who had helped direct the independence struggle, negotiated the treaty, and commanded the army of the new Free State was dead at the age of 31. The shooting had lasted minutes. Its political impact would last for generations. The immediate aftermath was marked by shock, grief, and uncertainty. Collins's body was taken to Dublin, where enormous crowds gathered to pay their respects. His funeral became one of the defining public spectacles of the young state. Many people mourned not only a leader, but the possibility that Collins might have found a way to end the Civil War more quickly. His death removed one of the few figures who possessed both revolutionary authority and practical influence among the new state's supporters. Then came the question that transformed the event from a tragic ambush into one of Ireland's enduring historical mysteries. Who fired the fatal shot? The ambush was carried out by anti-treaty forces, but the exact identity of the shooter has never been established beyond dispute. Some later accounts pointed toward particular participants, others challenged those claims. The evidence is complicated by battlefield confusion, conflicting memories, political loyalties, and the passage of time. Responsible history must distinguish between what is known and what is suspected. We know Collins was killed at Béal na Bláth during an anti-treaty ambush. We do not possess a universally accepted answer to the question of the individual who killed him. There have also been theories about whether Collins was deliberately targeted, whether he was hit by a long-range shot or closer fire, and whether the encounter might have ended differently if he had stayed inside the armored car. These theories continue to attract attention because the scene was chaotic and because Collins's death came at such a decisive moment. Yet mystery should not be allowed to replace evidence. The strongest conclusion is also the simplest. A convoy entered a dangerous area during a civil war. A firefight broke out. Collins exposed himself while returning fire, and a bullet ended the life of the most recognizable leader of the Irish independence generation. Michael Collins's death did not instantly end the Irish Civil War. Fighting continued, and the Free State eventually defeated the anti-treaty forces. But the loss changed the character of the new government and the emotional landscape of the country. Collins had represented a bridge between the clandestine revolution and the machinery of state. Once he was gone, the hope that personal authority might reconcile the divided movement became far more difficult to realize. Today, the road at Béal na Bláth is quiet, the traffic is sparse, the hills are green, and the landscape can appear almost too peaceful to hold the memory of an hour of gunfire. But historical places often conceal the violence that occurred there. On the 22nd of August 1922, this ordinary bend in the road became the scene of a national trauma. Michael Collins had survived imprisonment, clandestine warfare, assassination campaigns, and negotiations with an empire. He did not survive the war that followed independence. His story remains powerful because it is not a simple tale of hero versus villain. It is a story of a revolution that won partial freedom and then fractured over what freedom meant. It is a story of former allies becoming enemies, of political decisions carrying personal consequences, and of a leader whose final act was shaped by the same boldness that had made him famous. At Béal na Bláth, the past does not offer a neat solution. It leaves us with a date, a road, a fatal shot, and a question that history has never completely answered. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.